Welcome back to another episode of Handloader TV. I'm your host, Jeremiah. And in this episode, we're kind of doing a follow-up with the load development video that we just posted on the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum cartridge and this Bighorn Model 89 lever action that we have. And in that video, I stated that we did a ton of testing and a ton of shooting off camera, and that is true. So I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with this video and give you a sneak peek into some of the other testing and some of the shooting that we did with this particular rifle, because I also think there's some value there as well to showcase the performance of the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum cartridge as well as the rifle itself. And you'll see some of my clunky handling of the rifle as I was first starting out. Before I ever shot the load development, I went ahead and put a ton of ammunition through this rifle to get myself familiar with it and kind of get a feel for the rifle, the sights, and everything that was going along. And since that video, I've also done more shooting. And at this point in time, this rifle has well over 600 rounds through it. There's a couple of things that I want to point out at this point with the rifle. And then also just some little things I've learned along the way. When you put that many rounds through a firearm and a cartridge, you really get a good feel for them. So we'll go ahead and talk about those. But before we dive into any of those details, let's go ahead and jump on over to the shooting side of things, because that's way more fun, to be honest. And there's some pretty neat things that you guys can see. So let's hit the range with this rifle and show you what we did with it, and showcase some of the very impressive performance of this cartridge. So now we thought we'd have a little fun since we've got the lever action here, and we got some water jugs downrange there. First up, I'm going to try and hit one with a 380 grain Rimrock round nose flat point bullet with a full power load at H110. Let's see what it does to the water jug. We'll go fix the other one and shoot the other one with a 350 grain Hornady XTP mag. So next up, XTP mag, full power charge of Hodgdon H110 on a 1 gallon water jug. Wow, that blew a leg off my table. That's pretty impressive, the amount of power that the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum has in a lever gun. I mean, it's impressive in a revolver too, but in a lever gun, you're getting some pretty wicked performance. So now for kicks and giggles, I've got a bowling pin downrange and another 350 grain Hornady XTP mag. Been shooting this bowling pin for many years, and something tells me that this might be its last year. Let's see what it does. I saw chunks fly. So now I've got a magazine full of Hornady XTPs, and let's say I'm walking through the woods and there's my milk jug downrange, and I might want to have some of that for dinner. So what I can actually do with this lever action is, even if it's racked in, I can eject that round, dump it out, and do what basically, if in the shotgun world you'd call it a slug select. I can load my light load of 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum into the chamber directly, and then I can have some chocolate milk with dinner if I want. Yeah, just like that. And as you can see, that magazine was loaded. I had full power XTPs in there. When you're shooting a 50 caliber bullet though, I'm not sure reduced loads make all that much difference on small game. So the Bighorn Armory lever gun we have here holds 7 in the magazine tube plus 1 in the chamber. So we've got the tube filled. We're going to go ahead and see if our steel plate can hold up to all 7 rounds. I'm not horribly optimistic at this point, but let's have some fun, and we'll shoot it just for kicks and giggles and see what happens. There she goes. All right, so we're back with the steel plate. I fixed it since the last time we shot at it. That's XTP. And figured I'd go ahead and show you loading the rifle. It's very comfortable, very pleasant. Doesn't pinch your fingers like a lot of lever guns do, which I can personally appreciate. Very smooth loading. And it holds 7 in the magazine. That's an XTP. I'm just shooting cast bullets in there. I think that's 7 right there. Oh, one more. That's 7. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's see what we can do on the steel plate. I don't know how many shots it's going to hold up to, but we're fixing to find out. It's a jury rig fix, so here we go. Oh, there it is. We got 2 more. Not particularly good, but I will take it. And we're empty and clear. That poor steel plate. It needs a raise. We put it through some torture, but it's not hand loader TV if we don't break the steel plate. We'll head back to the bench now and talk about in great detail all the stuff we did with this rifle. There's a whole lot more that we couldn't show on camera. And yeah, this is gonna be a fun deep dive. So now that we're back at the bench, we can talk about this rifle and kind of talk about the process we go through with each and every single one of these rifles. I think a lot of people don't realize that when we do these videos, we're not just shooting 4 or 5 loads. We're just shooting 4 or 5 loads and showcasing them for you in the video. But in reality, every rifle that comes through here that we do a video on, or an article for that matter, in Handloader Magazine, we thoroughly test and evaluate, and we spend a lot of time shooting these things, working up loads, and doing just a ton of testing in general. And this rifle here was no exception. As a matter of fact, I would say this rifle got a little bit more attention than what is normally given, mostly because I loaded a ton of ammunition, loaded a ton more ammunition, and then I needed the cases for another project, so I had to shoot them, and what better gun to shoot them in than this lever action. And that's one of the big points I want to make. You know, the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum cartridge is a powerhouse of a cartridge. There's plenty of energy delivered downrange. It's more than capable of taking all manner of game, especially out of a rifle where you're getting a significant feet per second energy downrange advantage. Plus, it's a 50 caliber projectile, which punches a big hole in an animal. It's a lot bigger than most of your typical hunting cartridges. Even with expanding bullets, fully expanded, they're not going to measure out to ½ an inch in diameter. So the 500 Smith & Wesson is very effective at stopping game and stopping dangerous game even, such as bears and things of that nature. And as a result of all that power, you do have a significant amount of recoil. And that's something to keep in mind. However, compared to the X-frame Smith & Wesson revolvers or other revolvers chambered in 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, the lever action is actually very pleasant to shoot overall. It's comparatively, I would shoot this over the revolver any day of the week, and it allows you to have a very large, very powerful cartridge in a compact, handy rifle platform. And this one's even more handy thanks to its takedown features, which we covered in the previous video. If you haven't watched that video, I would highly encourage you guys to do so. This one will make a whole lot more sense once you watch that video, and you'll get a lot more details on the specifications of the gun and things of that nature. But I want to focus mostly on what I learned in shooting this rifle, and I didn't quite have a full appreciation for the power that it was capable of pushing with the 500 Smith & Wesson until we started shooting it in the field, started shooting it on various targets, wet newspaper tests, things like that, that I really realized that this cartridge is more than adequate for stopping the biggest game. I was very impressed with the performance and overall pleased with the results. And I got to slow down the shooting cadence a little bit as well, or I wasn't testing a ton of loads trying to find a good one to showcase on the video and things like that. And under a more reasonable and manageable shooting cadence, it actually became a lot more pleasurable to shoot. And putting 25 to 50 rounds downrange in a day, it was very pleasant. My shoulder wasn't sore afterwards. And the wonderful thing about hand loading is if you want, you can shoot reduced recoil loads. I didn't do that in this particular rifle just because we wanted to focus on hunting hand loads. And on that note, I think we hit the head on the nail with this rifle. It would be a dandy rifle to take into the field as a brush gun, something to take up to Alaska if you're going to encounter Kodiak bears and things like that. So all in all, it's been a pleasure to shoot. We hope you enjoyed this little bit further dive on this rifle itself. If you guys have any questions, be sure to leave those in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button along with the bell icon so you're notified when we post our next video. And until then, we'll keep them coming, and we've got plenty more exciting projects in the works, so stick around for those and keep an eye out for them. And I will see you guys in the next episode.